welcome back to my channel, JPM.Cuisine. Today I've got a very special unboxing for you, as you can see on my board right now. But I just wanted to extend a warmest and happy holidays to you and your families. And as always, thank you guys for your support. I'm glad I'm able to produce content like this for you guys, and hopefully you find it entertaining, enjoyable, and informational as well. So without further ado, let's get into this. Today we've got the 6-piece knife block from Mercer Culinary. It's the Genesis series, and this is actually the stainless steel tempered glass knife block. Let's see, what are the contents? So inside of this knife block, we've got the 3.5-inch paring, which you've seen me unbox before. We've got a 5-inch utility knife. We've got an 8-inch chef's knife. We've got an 8-inch bread knife and a 6-inch boning knife. Okay, so this is my first time opening up. I haven't seen it before. These are all NSF certified. Pretty neat. So it's a stainless steel holder with a glass, 2 pieces of glass on each side in order to protect your hands from, I guess, accessing the knives. But there you go. It's pretty weighty, very solid base on that, and I believe we can unscrew these to get access to the cardboard in there. Let's go ahead and check out the base. That just pulls out. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and get that out of there. These back. The spacers predetermined. It's a little bit of assembly to get the cardboard out, and you can also clean it. Then it's a very nice weighted base, so I feel like it's pretty solid in that fashion. See-through glass. We'll pick up some fingerprints, so you'll probably have to clean that every now and then, but you can easily see which knife is which is really good, especially if people put them back. If you share a kitchen with somebody and they don't always put the knives back in the block, that could be an issue. Not with this at all. Alright, the M2000. So the very first knife we have is the boning knife. We've got the paring knife. We've got the bread knife. The chef's knife with the full bolster. And the 5-inch utility knife. They're all fully forged high carbon German steel. There's the entire Genesis series set. You've got several chef's knives, and I've got a few of the chef's knives that I'm going to review in the next few days here. And I can show you the difference between the bolster, the short bolster, and the full bolster. But here is basically the sets that they have. When we're looking at the M2 Quad Zero or 20,000, the M20,000 set. The other one has the wood embossed within it, so you can still see it's got glass. This one's pretty sturdy. It matches my paper towel holders and a lot of the things in my kitchen. So this right there makes the most sense for me. Let's get into the knives. So the first one we have, to the side. So first of all, when we're talking about a set, there's always a lot of debate on whether or not a set is a good idea. And for me, in terms of essentials, you know, really an essential knife for the kitchen is either going to be your 8-inch chef's knife or 7-inch Santoku or something along that nature, and a vegetable peeler will get you by in most cases. So when we're talking about essentials, some people will reference the essentials as the chef's knife, the bread knife, and maybe a paring knife or utility knife. These two aren't always mentioned, but when I think about a cook's essential for a block, there's debate about it is whether or not the rest of the knives that are included in the block set have any value or purpose. Usually you'll get steak knives, you'll get a chef's knife, a Santoku, a 5-inch. You'll get multiple sizes of the chef's knife or the Santokus. You get serrated edge and knot. You'll get all kinds of knives that you don't always necessarily need. In this set, the Genesis set from Mercer Cutlery, or Mercer Culinary, you actually get what I would consider the first 5 knives that anyone would need to purchase. Starting with the chef's knife and the paring knife. If you don't have a vegetable peeler, of course a paring knife will do all of that for you. And I've already reviewed it in the previous video, but it's the same exact one that I have. It's fantastic. It's the same, feels exactly the same. We'll take a closer look at all of them. But I think, you know, what we're gonna see is that for the most people, they'll be able to get by with these. The bread knife, whenever you're doing any kind of carving potentially, or cutting bread as the name exhibits, it's gonna have that use because it's got the serrated edge for that. The boning knife or the fillet knife is for removing meat from bones, and depending on what your technique is or what you're working on, this is going to be perfect for removing silver skin from roast and doing a lot of trimming. So I think this is essential. You can still do it with either of these two, but this is what it's really designed for. And the utility knife is sort of the in-between knife of the chef's knife and the paring knife. Now, in my last video when I showed the paring knife, one of the big features for me is to be able to choke up on the edge and use it in that fashion, and when I'm peeling, to use it in that fashion. The utility knife is a little bit longer, so I wouldn't be able to do any kind of coring in it. But it's small enough that it's less intimidating compared to the chef's knife, and you can still do some cuts with it, but it's still not as, what would you say? It's not as, it's not a workhorse like your chef's knife. This is ultimately the first one that anybody who's considering getting a knife should look at. Now again, with the Genesis series, we're looking at the Santoprene Handles. And if you watched my top 5 for the holidays, originally I had concerns about Santoprene just because they, you don't feel like you've got, you know, such a quality knife because they're not using wood or carbon fiber or what is the micarta or anything like that. But honestly, in terms of comfort, the handles on these, the Santoprene is going to give you the ultimate grip and comfort. They may not have the durability of G10 or micarta, but you know, for the price range of what you're getting, these are going to be fantastic for ergonomics and for comfort. So I am back to supporting the use of the Santoprene on knives. Okay, so let's go ahead and unbox each of these and remove them from the sheath so you can see them in all the glory. This is an 8-inch bread knife, which feels fantastic. Now, the handles on the bread knife, the fillet or the boning knife, and the chef's knife feel almost identical. Yeah. Wow, they feel almost identical, which is good because you'll get familiar with that feel as you're using them. The utility knife and the paring knife, again, almost identical in that regard. So they're gonna have the exact same feel for you. And you'll be able to see very quickly how they feel in your hand and how the utility is based on the type of handle. The chef's knife has some pretty good weight to it. It's the full bolster, so it runs down. And if you can see, this is tapered back a little bit so you're not running directly against the edge. A pretty thick spine that tapers down towards the point. But it is the full bolster, so you get the comfort in protecting against hot spots on your middle finger when you're using it for prolonged periods. And it feels really, really good in the hand. Let's go ahead and put some of these in the holder. I'm not sure if there's a specific spot for them. They kind of look like that might be somewhat of a spot, but we'll get the weights of all of these so you can see just what we're dealing with. Okay, we'll start with the chef's knife. So with the chef's knife, it is that traditional German style chef's knife or French style chef's knife. It's definitely a European style chef knife. Good flat spot near the bolster and the heel. So whenever you're doing chopping, you're gonna get a positive feel there. It's not gonna feel like it's continuously rocking like from the belly, but you're gonna feel pretty pronounced in that method for rock chopping, which is really good. The balance feels like it's right in the bolster, and it is. These things are perfectly balanced in that regard. So the weight from the bolster to the heel, or to the butt of the knife, and from the heel to the tip is right along. They're evenly weighted across that bolster. And we'll get into that right now and see exactly what we're dealing with in terms of weight. In grams, of course. Okay. So we're looking at 243 grams. Not the lightest, not the heaviest, but definitely you feel. The thing about weight, guys, is with more weight, of course, you've got gravity on your side when you're doing some chopping, so the weight of the knife is gonna help minimize the amount of force that you're gonna have to use, specifically in chopping root vegetables like carrots or potatoes of that nature, or maybe through something heavy like butternut squash. But to have it balanced means that you're not feeling like it's tipping this way or that it's handle heavy, so you're trying to use more weight or effort in your hand to manage the knife. This thing feels perfectly balanced. It feels really, really good in my hand. I've been using the Millennia for quite a while, and this thing feels just as amazing as the Millennia. I'm really impressed with the way it feels. A little bit of a sharp edge around the bolster here. And around here, it's not so bad, so we'll see. The Millennia, of course, has a plastic handle that's rounded, and it has the raised little notches on there, or the raised texture on it, so that you get a good grip there. But this feels really good in my hand. And again, I think that was 240 grams. Let's check out the boning knife. And 168 on that. Now this one is going to be handle heavy. It's not going to be balanced towards the edge of this, because this is, I think, exactly the same handle as the as a chef's knife. You want a lot more control in the handle, so you want weight there. It's similar to when I'm using a paring knife, but because you're not going to be chopping down on things. Bread knife, we'll see how much that one weighs. So we've got 206 grams. That was 206. This was 169. And the chef's knife again was 243 and 206. I love the serrations on it. It has those wide groove serrations so that you can get a fairly good cut through breads without having too much of an issue in terms of trying to sharpen if you ever needed to. Although serrated edges are probably one of the most notoriously hard hard edges or hardest types of edges to sharpen. But it feels really good. Serrations feel good. Wish I had some bread so we could cut something, but it feels really good in the hand. In terms of the balance, I still think it's going to be handle heavy. Yeah, just a little bit right behind that bolster. You get a nice balance feel in your hand, and this thing, this knife feels phenomenal as well. Of course, you're not going to be using a pinch grip when you use this knife, but if you needed to carve something, you've got a very long edge for that. So in terms, of the pricing on this, even though I think it's under $200 for this block set, I feel like you're getting high quality knives that are going to have great use in your kitchen. Okay, so let's look at the utility knife, and we're looking at 86 grams, and the paring knife again is 79 grams, so they're almost the same. The only difference on those is basically the length of the blade, and of course the paring knife is very handle heavy. The utility knife is going to be the same, very thin spines on these, almost identical. They're almost the identical knife, it's just one has about 2 inches more on it. So very cool, very good use. They feel really good in the hand. The fit and finish, there's sort of a gradual step between the Santoprene handle down to the metal bolster down to the edge, so it's kind of like a 3-step. Feels good in lockup. I love this paring knife. I use this paring knife almost daily for everything from opening packages, not regular packages, but like sausage or meats or anything like that, opening up food packaging, of course, and peeling apples, cutting onions, you name it. This thing is phenomenal. I haven't had a full matching set, so I'm really pleased and impressed by this one. It feels really good in the hand. The utility knife, again, I haven't been, I found a huge use for the utility knife, but we'll give it a try. I think my wife tends to use the smaller knives because she's a bit intimidated by the larger chef's knife. But they do offer a 6-inch chef's knife if you feel intimidated by this and you want to get in the hand or get in the groove of or in practice of using a chef style knife. So that's a really good option. But let's get into some paper cutting with these knives and we'll just see how they all perform. Now, the reason I test on paper is basically just to check for any inconsistencies in the sharpening. It's a test for me in order to sort of validate quality control within the manufacturing, but this is just a way for me to get an idea of the sort of care that went into the sharpening and polishing of the knife to make sure that it is free of defects. Quick reminder, this is the X50 CRMOV 15 steel. So it is a European style steel. And in terms of sharpness, push cuts, the chef knife feels really, really good in the hand. The primary difference that I can immediately tell between this and the Renaissance edition is the Renaissance edition has sort of the 3-rivet traditional handle, and these are the Santoprene. I think they're very close in price now. I'll post all of that in the description box. So let's get into the rounded test where I curve a magazine paper on a, this is a wrapping paper roll just to get an edge. Again, the reason I do this is to minimize the potential to create creases and sort of cheat the test. So in this case, again, let's just keep talking about the point of a block set. It takes up minimal amount of space on your counter. I have been using the magnetic strips because they take up 0 space on my counter, and counter space is a prime real estate. The cool thing about this is since it's elongated, and it's very narrow. So if you have a spot that you can put it next to the fridge or something like that, it's not going to take up a lot of space, and you don't have to worry about this thing tipping over because it has quite a bit of weight in there, even regarding the weight of the knives in it. It is metal, so when you're putting in your knife, you do want to be careful that you're not scraping against any of these. So as you pull it out, it has the potential to dull your own knife just by the spacers that are in there. So that's one thing you want to be concerned with. I'll give it a try and we'll see if this causes any kind of wear and tear. I mean, it seems like you can pull it up against the spine and there's enough spacing. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is enough spacing between the edges and the spine, or in the spacer, when you pull it from the spine. So you have to make a conscious effort to do that. And the paring knife feels like it's running up against this quite a bit. So I don't know if this one is better. Oh, maybe a little bit better. Paring knife spacing's kind of far. I don't know. You can play with it and see how you want them. On the box, it's exactly like I've got it set up here. So maybe this is the ideal. Utility knife might be best for this edge here. So that right there is the 6-piece block. You get 5 knives in the block itself. They seem very, very good quality. I can't wait to try these out. If you guys have any further questions or you want me to demo any of these specifically, leave a comment. Well, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And as always, thank you for your support. Thank you for continued support. And we'll see you in the next one.